Hello everyone, I'm Anthony Gamer and welcome to Classic Gamer 74. Today's episode I will be discussing games that were exclusive to the Intellivision. Alright, a little background history about Intellivision itself. The home video game console was released by Mattel in 1979, although work began in 1977. In 1984, Mattel sold their video game assets to one of their executives, and it became known as Intellivision Corporation. Now, the name Intellivision itself is a play on the term intelligent television. Intellivision itself was discontinued in 1990. During its lifetime, the Intellivision would release 133 games. One thing that set Intellivision apart from other game systems of that day, and probably from game systems that would come, has to be their controller. On this controller, you had a disc at the bottom that was used for movement in most games. You had a 12-button keypad that you would use to do other things in the games, depending on the game itself, which you would know what to do simply by using an overlay that would slide into it. And then you had buttons on the side. Now, for some people, it took a while to get used to this controller, but once you got the hang of it, you were able to play games on a whole nother level that no other game system of that time could let you. When Atari released the ill-fated 5200 in 1982, it became obvious that they took inspiration from the Intellivision controller. I'll be the first to admit that I was not always a big fan of the Intellivision. None of my friends had one. The only person I personally knew that had one was my mother's brother, Eric, and he had quite a few games for it, and I played the heck out of it when I went to visit them for Christmas in 1983. But it would be almost 30 years later until I actually played one again. One add-on that made the Intellivision stand out from other game systems of that time was the Intellivoice, which made it possible to have actual dialogue during a game. Honestly, though, I think some people bought it just to hear this.
Mattel Electronics presents B-17 Bomber.
At the urging of some of my viewers and friends, I decided to give Intellivision another try. And to be honest, I have really enjoyed it. One of my fans put it best when they said nobody makes sports games like Intellivision, and I have to agree with that. With that in mind, today I'm going to discuss some of my favorite games that were exclusive to the Intellivision. And of course, this does not count the games that were made by Mattel, but those that were made by third-party companies. Okay, with one exception. And I have to mention this game because it is my all-time favorite Intellivision game and one of my all-time favorite video games, period. Although, to be honest, I'm not very good at it, it still sets itself apart from many video games from that time period and pretty much from any other Intellivision game, and that's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. If you've known me longer than 10 minutes, you know that I'm a big fan of pretty much anything fantasy. So, books, movies, comics, whatever. I just love fantasy. Alright, now in this particular game, you are this hero that is trying to get to the Misty Mountain, and on the way you run across several monsters, of course, in this kind of a labyrinth here, and you're just making your way around, collecting treasure, and fighting off the monsters. Some monsters are tougher than others, and unfortunately some of them are unbeatable. Now, your weapon, of course, are these arrows, which you kind of got to keep track of, because if you don't, you're going to run out of them, and you kind of run out of them very fast. You have the sounds that let you know if a monster is coming, and basically you're just kind of wandering around trying to make your way through each labyrinth and make your way across the mountains to get to the Misty Mountain, where there is a dragon waiting to battle you. Like I said, I was never really all that good at this game, but you know, you don't really have to be good at a game in order to have fun, and that honestly, I would have to say, was the most appealing, is the simple most appealing thing about Intellivision and Intellivision games. They're fun. You can talk all you want about, oh, the sprites aren't that good or whatever, but I'll tell you what, you cannot argue that Intellivision games are fun, and this game had to be the most fun. Whether you're any good at it or not is irrelevant. I also have to say that I really enjoy the sprites in this game because you can really tell, what is what. But of course, you got to use your imagination a little bit. Another thing I really have to tell you that's important about this game now is the fact that in some Intellivision games you can get away with not having the overlay. This is definitely not one of those games. So if you are playing this on an emulator, I highly recommend that you find out what the buttons do. Get a copy of the overlay because you're going to need it in this game. So when I hear of the third-party game company Magic, I usually think of Atlantis, probably one of the best games for the Atari 2600. But did you know that they made a couple games exclusively for the Intellivision? One of these was Microsurgeon, which was programmed by Rick Levine. Alright, the story of this game is that you are piloting a microscopic probe that is going through this person's body. Now, going through here, you have some problems that you have to take care of as you go through the bloodstream. You have infections usually in the lungs, in the brain, etc., etc. And your job is to go through there and save this person's life in such a short amount of time. Now, you have different types of germs that you have to fight against. You have bacteria, viruses, and then you have blockages that you have to clear up. And at your disposal, you have aspirin, antibiotics, and ultrasonic rays. Now, the treatment that you use, depends on the ailment. For example, bacteria only respond to antibiotics, while viruses can only be temporarily disabled with aspirin. And of course, the ultrasonic rays help you to destroy the blockages in different parts of the body. As you can see right now, I'm heading over to the lungs where I have a lot of blockages and a lot of other germs that are making the person have a hard time breathing. So you only have so much time to go through the body and fix the person basically, and you get updates every so often that show you how the person is doing. Really cool game. Very imaginative, and I get at the time they probably thought something like this couldn't happen, but you never know. I mean, we're probably close to that sort of treatment right now. Oh yeah, another thing, try to stay in the bloodstream because if you don't, the white blood cells come after you and make it kind of hard. Plus, it's just easier on yourself, period, to go through the bloodstream. You can see right now I'm in the heart and I'm trying to get rid of these cholesterol blockages that are in the heart. So, like I said, a very imaginative game, and I honestly believe medical science isn't too far away from something like this. And if you'd like to see me complete this level from start to finish, head over to my Facebook page and you can see the full video of me playing Microsurgeon. Another game that Magic made that was exclusive just for the Intellivision was Beauty and the Beast. This game was written by Wendell Brown and is sort of similar to Donkey Kong in that it's a platform game, and that you are a gentleman by the name of Bashful Buford who is trying to save Tiny Mabel from the giant Horrible Hank. In order to save Mabel, you have to climb up a building while avoiding things thrown by Horrible Hank. Now in this one, Mabel throws you hearts, which makes you invincible for a short time. Now with completing each level, you get a little higher up in the building, which is kind of similar to the Empire State Building. And if you can make it all the way to the top, you get Mabel back and Hank gets toppled off the top of the building. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that you do not want to fall off the edge, because if you do, you have to start all the way from the bottom. One of my ultimate favorite Intellivision games is this, yes, Beauty and the Beast. Had a lot of fun playing it over the years, and highly recommend it, especially for those who are fans of Donkey Kong. Best way I can describe this game is kind of like Donkey Kong with attitude, so... Alright, next up, also by Magic, we have Dracula. Now, in this game, you are just a generic vampire that is called Dracula because it has nothing to do with the Bram Stoker story. What you're doing is traveling through this town, trying to drain the blood out of a certain number of victims and return to your crypt before sunrise. Some of your victims will be out on the sidewalk for you to catch. Others of them will be in their homes, and you have to knock on the door and lure them out. Now, as time goes on, you will have a couple things that are trying to stop you. You have a wolf that will come out and bite you on the leg and slow you down before you can get back to your crypt. You have the ability to turn into a bat and fly around rather quickly. The problem with that is once you are a bat, you become vulnerable to these vultures. And one of the cool attacks you have in later levels is that you can actually turn your human victims into like ghouls or zombies so that they can fight off the constables that try to stop you. So I found this game very amusing and very unique, especially for the fact that you actually get to play Dracula. As in most games, vampire type games, you are hunting the vampires, and this one you actually get to be the vampire. Alright, next up we have Happy Trails by Activision that was programmed by Carol Shaw. The player in this game must navigate a character, like a cowboy, through a broken maze to collect gold, but one wrong step will end the game. A really imaginative game, and of course you would expect nothing less from Carol Shaw, the genius behind River Raid, considered by many, myself included, to be one of the greatest video games of all time. Alright, and our final game for today is Word Womper, that was released in 1983 by Activision and was one of 6 of the original games that Cheshire Engineering developed for the Intellivision. It was written by Tom Lawfrey. And in this particular game, you are a farmer called Felton Pinkerton, and you are trying to fend off your corn from an army of hungry bugs. Now, these bugs include inchworms, moths, caterpillars, and slugs, and if they get past Felton, they will eat part of his corn crop. As you proceed to each level, the bugs get faster, and like any and all Activision games, this game has fast-paced action and can get kind of frustrating really quick, but yet is a really fun game and kind of a lost classic in the video game world. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Classic Gamer 74. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to click that little bell icon so you'll be notified when I upload new videos. Do you have a particular favorite Intellivision game that wasn't featured in today's episode? Well, let us know about it in the comments section below, and it may be featured in a follow-up episode. In the next episode, I will be discussing probably one of the most difficult, and yet one of my personal favorite, Atari games of all time, Quest for Quintana Roo, so you won't want to miss that episode. Well, this has been Anthony Gamer. Thank you for stopping by, and I will see each and every one of you in the next episode. Until then, have yourselves a great day. Goodbye.